We're going to finish the performance exercises first, and if we have time first hour, we'll go on to chapter 7. We'll have the test at the beginning of second hour. So we're going to go to page 161. And again, we're practicing mainly what? Implosives, laryngalized or creaky voice, voiceless, not just vowels, but also nasals and other sounds like L. So let's go back to C. We didn't quite finish C on page 161. Let's just do them together. And we've got creaky first here. Then what do we call just ordinary voicing? Modal voicing. Then breathy in. Voiceless. Okay, let's start with number 1. And we're going to start it off with a glottal stop. It's just sort of like having a block to push you off when you're running a race. That's what the glottal stop sort of is like here. All right, for number 1. Okay, I put an there. Let's do it with M. I didn't do it very well. Let's go it again. Go again. Okay, with N. Not you have to go alveolar. Once more. And with the velar nasal. And with lateral. And with E. All right. Try to superimpose breathy voice or murmur onto intervocalic consonants, saying, try, ma, and na, and na, la. Okay. And don't worry if it's also evident in the adjacent vowels. Now try adding breathy voice to stops. The release of the closure should be followed by a brief period, of murmur extending into the vowel. So we have ba, da, and ga. Add creaky voice or laryngalization to intervocalic consonants. Try ma, na, la. Then produce stops with creaky voice or laryngalization. Ba, na, la. And then stops with creaky voice. Ba, da, ga. And don't worry if the creakiness goes on into the next vowel. Then say ba, making sure you have a fully voiced intervocalic stop, and then keep increasing the length of the voicing. So, ba. Say it about 3 times, and each time let the voicing get a little longer. Yesterday in Kaohsiung, I had a pronunciation workshop, and they were really having trouble with voicing, with final voice stops. And the way I think to help is, for example, the difference between tab and tap. Many of my students think that tap, 这个东西 is tab, T-A-B. Why is that? Because they don't distinguish between tap and tab. 根本不分, right? So in order to get that final voicing, of course the length and vowel is important. My students yesterday in Kaohsiung didn't know about that. I don't know if anybody in the class knew that before a voice sound, the vowel gets lengthened. So that was new for them. But in addition, you still need a bit of voicing at the end. Usually it stops about halfway through, but we still need that voicing, at least if we're pronouncing it normally. So tap, tab. And if they're having trouble with it, first of all, I point out that you have it in Taiwanese as well. Jiliap, jiliaba. Nigga ba is voiced. And second, actually a similar strategy, you can add a little schwa at the end. And extend the voicing, pretend like it's the beginning of another word, and then you can usually get the voicing. So tab, tab, tab. So when you're saying b, usually an initial voice stop is easier than a final. Is that right? 放在词首比较容易念. So just make it into an initial by adding a schwa. So tab, and then cut off the tab, and then you've got it. All right, here we're going to just say abba. It's something similar. We'll say it kind of normally first, then lengthen it and make it as long as you can on the third reading, okay? Abba, abba, abba. All right, one more time. Abba, abba, abba. All right, now do it with the. Ada, ada, ada. And ga. Aga, aga, aga. Okay, and now we're going to produce them initially and make sure that you're not saying nasals. And a lot of Taiwanese, when they're trying to learn this, they end up pronouncing a nasal, especially at the end of a syllable. Okay, so long, fully voiced stops, again, without the ah, go. Ba, da, ga, and you got that rumble in your throat. That's the voicing. And so make sure you're not saying mba, nda, nga. We do have sounds like that in the world, especially in African languages. We call it prenasalization. Prenasalization, we're going to learn it in the next chapter, but that's not what we're doing now. And then produce voiceless unaspirated stops before vowels. So everybody, let's go. Okay. Ba, da, ga. That's no problem. And then we can add more aspiration than usual for L. Go. Pa, ta, ka. And then practice saying sequences of voiceless, unaspirated, and aspirated plosives. This is not difficult. We did this last time, but it's good to go over it again. So voiced, voiceless, voiceless, aspirated. Go. Ba, ba, pa, da, da, ta, ga, ga, ka. All right, and then as many intermediate stages as you can. We'll just use 5 levels, and we've sort of done that already. So let's just do that with ba. Long, fully voiced, a little bit shorter, voiceless, unaspirated, slightly aspirated, strongly aspirated. So with ba, 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 pa, pa. All right, one more time. Let's do da this time. Da, 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 ta, ta. All right, one left. Let's do ka. Ga, 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 ka, ka. All right. So O we already know. And extend this series by beginning with a laryngalized stop and ending with a murmured stop. And we've sort of done that already, but let's go through all the way this time through a murmured stop. Column 1, go. Ba, 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 pa, ba. Okay, 2. Da, 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 ta, da. Ga, ga, ka. Let's do it again. I did it wrong. Let's start with laryngalized. Go. Ga, 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 ka, ga. All right, and this is the part that we didn't finish last time. So let's go through column 1. Don't go too fast and concentrate so you get all of the little changes. And remember that typo in column 3. Have you found it? Column 3, there's a typo. What should it be? Just looking at it, it looks strange. Column 3, what do you see that's strange? That's right. So in column 3, word number 4, the H should be a small raised H and not a regular H. That's a new typo. Didn't have that before. All right, column 1, let's go. Demas, demas, temas, demas, demas. 2. Begal, begal, pekal, begal, bebal. Okay, 3. Godeng, 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 kodeng, godeng. Okay, and then ejectives. It says When you're making an ejective, you should be able to feel that you make an articulatory closure. For example, bring your lips together. It may not be your lips, it may be tongue tip, alveolar ridge, may be back of the tongue and the velum. Then you make a glottal stop. That means you have to 屏息. Feel like you're holding your breath. Raise your larynx. You can feel that. So, and you should be able to, on to 4. Release the articulatory closure, and then release the glottal closure, then that will push the air out, so it sort of explodes. And if you can't produce the sequences, reread the section to find some useful hints. Let's just produce those 3 ejectives. And S, go. Ah, ah, ah. And Tina can do it now. Tina can do it now. It's always fun when somebody runs into me on campus and they go, Miss Chong, I can do it. Listen, ah, I can do it. It happens with many kinds of sounds. After practice, usually when you're biking around campus, you get it. And it's always exciting for everybody. And next is implosives. Let's try them. That's the harder one. So, remember you're swallowing. Keep your mouth closed and then swallow. Not If you say then it's coming in your nose. Your nose has to be blocked up too. So, all right. Not If I hear it's wrong. You have to plug your nose. It's not It should not have an M sound. That doesn't sound like M to you, does it? There. No nose air going in. So some of you are going That means your nose is open. So All right. And then you superimpose that on the stops. Catch your breath. Yeah. Ba. Ba. Not ba. There's no nasal there. Ba. Ba. Ga. Okay. Let's work on clicks. Let's try a voiceless version of each click between vowels. So here we're just doing the k sound. So, and we have, let's just review the places of articulation. We have a straight line is dental, exclamation point is postalveolar, double vertical line, lateral, okay, so, ah. All right, postalveolar, and lateral, Now, voiced version, it's going to be g. So, dental, postalveolar, lateral, and then the nasalized, which I think is the easiest, postalveolar, and lateral, All right, let's do some nonsense words going down, starting from the left. Is it that difficult? Okay. All right, the first one. Bedag. Not so hard. Next one. Bedag. Bedag. Ebab. And bab. And I think that's unreleased. Let's do the second column. Tip up. Pagod. Dugap. You have to at the end. There's an ejective at the end. Try that one again. Dugap. And dug. Next. O. Be a. And ka o. And e. Okay. All right, we're done with that. Anybody want to ask any questions? Make sure that your exercises are ready. We'll collect them during break. We went over the written exercises last class. Collect those during break. So no questions on Chapter 6. We're going to go on to Chapter 7. Test will be second hour, like I said. So let's start on Chapter 7, consonantal gestures. And whose turn? New chapter. Whose turn? Who was the last to read? Okay, no, you're just fixing your hair. Do we know where we are? It's Wendy? Okay. Page 163.
Chapter 7, Consonantal Gestures. The movements of the lips and tongue in English are only a small subset of those that can be used for making consonants. Scores of other sounds can be made, as we will see by considering different languages.
Considering, it's not considering. Right.
Considering different languages. An appropriate way to describe consonantal gestures in the languages of the world is in terms of two of their aspects.
Say it again. Is in.
Is in terms of two of
Say the word terms. I don't hear your M really clearly.
terms.
Right, now it's good.
In terms of two of their aspects.
Aspects.
The targets of the gesture.
Targets? This is our main point, so we need to stress it. He just said 2, and as soon as you see a number, don't you start counting? Which 2 is he talking about? The first one is targets. So, Wendy, you're reading really nice. Actually, vowels and consonants are great, but it's kind of flat. And I know you got a cold, so that makes it harder. But try to put a little more intonation into it, up and down, and ups and downs, and also a little more ganqing. You can have ganqing in phonetics, actually.
The targets of the gestural movements, commonly called the place of articulation.
The what?
The place of articulation.
The what?
The place. Places.
Is that a Z?
Places.
Yeah. C, as far as I know, is never pronounced Z. So that's easy to remember. 四跟 Z 有时候很麻烦. If you see an S, you often don't know if it's 四 or Z. But C is never pronounced Z, as far as I know, except I can think of one exception. In some people's speech in British English, they say electricity. Some people say electricity in Britain. I haven't heard it in the States. But in general, when you see a C, just rule out Z. 应该不会是 Z, 很少.
Commonly called the places of articulation and the way in which the target is approached. Often thought of as the manner of articulation.
Okay, that was pretty good. That was better. As soon as we've given somebody a number, we have to emphasize those 2. Here it's 2, so we have to emphasize the 2 so the listener knows what are those 2 you just mentioned. First, the targets of the gestural movements, commonly called the places of articulation, and the way in which the target is approached, often thought of as the manner of articulation. Got it? That whole pattern? We've given, 已经开出个支票，我们要兑现. So we have to put that strong emphasis on those 2 things that we said are coming. Can you try it that way? The targets of the gesture movements, commonly called the places of articulation, 那是同位语, and the way in which the target is approached, often thought of as the manner of articulation. There's our big tonic. Okay?
The targets of the gestural movements commonly called
Right?
commonly called the places of articulation.
Articulation. More is coming.
Articulation and the way in which the target is approached, often thought of as the often thought of as the manner of articulation.
Okay, you're not angry yet. It's not manner. It's manner of articulation.
Often thought of as the manner of articulation.
Don't be afraid of sounding too high. Taiwan students are 比较含蓄. They don't want to make too exaggerated movements with their voice. But you need to go pretty high there. Often thought of as the manner. It's pretty high in your range. Often thought of as the manner of articulation. Good, now you have it. And link. Manner of articulation. 都有连音. Okay.
We will use these these traditional terms, but always remembering that speech sounds involve gestural movements.
Gestural movements.
Gestural
They're both important, so we stress both.
Gestural movements.
Not. Remember, not is an honorary content word because it's so important. So, not 是这样子而不是这样子. So when you see something like this, you need to stress it and lengthen it.
Speech sounds involve gestural movements, not static positions of the vocal organ.
Very good. All right. So we're going to learn some new places and manners of articulation. We could just summarize it that way. We're going to learn some new places and manners of articulation that we don't use in English. And that's about it. And the important thing to remember is when we produce speech sounds, although we often draw diagrams as though it were just sitting there in one position, actually it's a movement from A to B to C. Next.
Consonants that occur in other languages are well worth studying.
Not worth.
Worth
Right.
studying, even by those concerned mainly
Good.
with the phonetic of English.
Phonetics.
Phonetics of English.
Good.
Many of the sounds that occur in other languages also occur in regional,
Right.
accented, or disordered variety of English.
Disordered what?
Varieties.
Varieties. And I tap that. Varieties.
As we noted that at the beginning of the previous chapter, the best way to study unfamiliar sounds sounds is by observing them. Observing them in languages in which they are a regular, easily observable part of the sound system. Sound system.
There you go. You did it. Everybody's sound system. Varieties. All right. And he's saying that actually you can find many unusual sounds in practically any language. This is kind of a theme with my British teacher. When we're talking about unusual sounds, we find that actually you can often find them in many languages, though they're not a regular part of the phonological system. Just like in English, we have, which is used with horses. So that's an example of a sound that is used in a marginal way in the language, but we do have a click in English. And we also have in Chinese and in English. So when we are learning unusual sounds, it's good, in order to understand them better, to find a language where they are part of the phonology. So if we really want to understand clicks, we can't just look at English and its marginal use with horses, but we should look at Bushman languages of South Africa, and then we can find out how clicks really work. So he's saying, although we'll find bits and pieces of these unusual sounds in English or any other language, we should go to the language where they are a normal part of the phonology to really understand them. Because they're pronounced in a very natural way, they're very developed, people understand them better. And once we understand them in that exotic language, we can come back and understand them better, maybe in their marginal use, in a language like English or Mandarin. Did you follow that? Okay, good. So that's our introduction. Next reader.
Articulatory targets.
And once more.
Articulatory targets.
All right, that sounds sort of British, although my British teacher doesn't say it that way. It's articulatory. Everybody please remember it. I think I taught it first semester right at the beginning. But we need to practice it till it sticks and comes out naturally. Articulatory. Articulatory targets. Very good.
Many of the possible places of articulation that are used in the languages of the world were
World.
world
Yep.
were defined in Chapter 1. figure 6.7.1, which is similar to figure 1.5.
1.5.
Shows three additional
Pause. Shows has got stress in its diangia, so we need to put a little pause there to keep up the right rhythm. Shows three additional places. Everyone try that. Shows three additional places. Right. If you say it shows three additional places, it's going to slip by too fast. Our brain can't catch the important parts easily. Remember that this whole stress system in English, the intonational system in particular, is designed to help the listener grab onto the important parts. The structure is there because, for example, when you're putting up a brick wall, you have to use mortar. 砌墙的时候需要用水泥把它整个那个砌起来. But the important part is the bricks, basically. So 那些虚词可以带过. We just need that for structure. But the important parts we need to slow down. Otherwise, the listener doesn't know what to grab onto, because we can't grab onto every word and it's not necessary. So when you slow down, especially, for example, for a monosyllabic word, that's a content word, put a little pause there. The listener will get it much more easily. Okay? Shows
three additional places that will be discussed below.
Very good.
The terms for all the places
Open your mouth. Yep.
Places of articulation.
Of articulation. Once more.
The terms for all the places of articulation are not just names
It's not nut. You didn't say nut, but it was getting close. Remember what I just said, that not is very, very important. Slow down, stress it.
are not just names for particular locations on the roof of the mouth.
Good. Names.
Names.
Not 你，不要提早到 e 去。Name.
Name.
Underwear.
Names.
No, 中文 underwear.
Name.
Now you're going down 去了。Slow down. 不要再念了。不要念，嘴巴不要动。Okay? Name. Just say underwear in Chinese. Don't even think about English. 完全不要想到英文。Just say underwear again. Go. Good. Say it like 5 more times. 内衣. All right, 5 times with at the end, but the is very short. Name. Name. 不要跑到英文去. Remember, keep it in Chinese. 因为你一想英文会变 nem. But if you keep in Mandarin, it will be perfect English. That's the 矛盾 of this thing. So always think of underwear. It'll make you laugh. That'll make you happy, right? So, name. All right, let's try it with d at the end, named. So take it slowly. If you do it too fast, it'll come out named or nammed. So, named. Try. Named.
Name.
There you go.
Each term specifies where the arrow starts.
Where the arrow starts.
The articulator on the
Articulator.
on the lower surface.
Surface. It's just like service, but it's voiceless. 服务 service.
Surface. That makes this.
Stop it. Stops.
That makes this particular gesture. Gesture. And where it ends. The part of the vocal tract that is the target of the gesture.
Of the
gesture.
gesture, right? Let's look at the figure they're talking about. 7.1. Now, it doesn't make a lot of sense because we don't have the names attached to them. We're going to be learning them very soon. There's some we already know. Some of the places of articulation are the same, but we're going to use a new manner of articulation. And some are places of articulation that we have not used at all. Can you identify some that we have not used yet? The uvula. We haven't had uvulars except in the tutorials. We did actually do a little with uvulars. Okay, it's easy to make a ejective because Georgian has an ejective, a uvular ejective. The word for water is skali. So for me, it's easy to go to an ejective because that's what I practice. But ah, ha, and ga. Those are uvular. What's another place we haven't used? Pharyngeal. Look at number 10, that's pharyngeal. And number 11 is a really unusual one. I'm going to have trouble with those because I haven't learned languages that use those sounds. Number 11 is epiglottal. All right, now those are kind of unusual, quite unusual. We'll find them in languages like Arabic, some languages of the Caucasus, 高加索语言有一些有, but not Georgian. So some will be new places of articulation, some will be familiar places of articulation with new manners of articulation. Okay, let's go.
A large number of non-English sounds are to be found in other languages. Many of them involve using gestures in which the target or the place of articulation is different from any found in English.
Good. Watch your the, not the. Mm-hmm.
For other, it is.
Can you link?
For others, it is the type of gesture, what is traditionally called the manner of articulation, that is different.
Everyone, gesture. Gestures. No S. Gesture. And remember, if you're saying gesture, push your jaw up so you can put it back up to eh. Gesture. Gesture. That's good. Sounds good. Don't say gesture. Gesture. Good.
We will illustrate the different targets by considering how each place of articulation is used in English and in other languages for making stops, nasals, and fricatives.
Okay, that was a beautiful listing. Your intonation was perfect on that. So stops, nasals, and fricatives. That's how we do lists. Go ahead.
The numbers in the following paragraphs refer to the numbered arrows in figure 7.1.
All right, that's more Eastern Coast or East Coast. I say paragraphs, not paragraphs. Everyone, paragraphs. And I also say arrows. I don't say arrows. I say arrows. That's why Mary, Mary, and Mary are all the same for me. So arrows. And then next, we're going to start out with our first gesture, which we already have in English, but we're going to do something different with it.
1. The bilabial gesture is common in English.
All right, are we going to stress gesture? We don't need to because we've said it
gesture.
twice.
The bilabial gesture is common in English.
In English.
Which has bilabial stops and nasals.
Bilabial stops and nasals. Try to do a little analysis of what's new and what's old. Okay? Because when you see something that's new, then you stress it. If we just talked about it once or twice, take the stress off. So you have to do a scan before you're going to read to determine which one you're going to stress and which one not.
Which has bilabial stops and nasals. P, B, M.
Right.
But bilabial fricatives in English are simply allophones of the labial-dental sound. Labial-dental sounds f, v. In some languages, for example, eve, ewe, eve of West.
Okay, it sounds like eve, but look at my mouth. This is going to it's going to be a sample now of what we're going to talk about right away. It's eve. It's not v. They do have the v sound, and they also have a voiced bilabial fricative. So like when you're cold, you might make this sound. Eve.
Eve of West Africa. Bilabial fricatives contrast with labial-dental. Contrast with labial-dental fricatives.
With labiodental fricatives.
With labial-dental fricatives.
Yeah, you're an excellent reader, but I think you have to work more on information, new and old information. And what are we contrasting? We're contrasting what kind of fricatives. Fricatives is repeated, so we don't stress that. So are simply allophones of the, that's the preceding line. Simply allophones of the labiodental sounds v in some languages, for example, area of West Africa. Bilabial fricatives. Fricatives 不能太轻 because we didn't mention it before, but we're going to repeat it, so we also don't want to make it too strong. So bilabial fricatives contrast with labiodental fricatives. Can you just try that part? Bilabial?
Bilabial fricatives. Bilabial fricatives.
Fricatives 还是要有点重 because we have mentioned it, but it's important here too.
Bilabial fricatives contrast with labial-dental fricatives.
Okay, good enough.
The symbols for the voiceless and voiced bilabial fricatives are
Right, all right. So the first one, these are both Greek letters. So it's a circle with a vertical line through it, and the second one is a beta. That's the voiced one. Go on.
these sounds are
These sounds.
these sounds are pronounced by bringing the two lips nearly together.
Okay, you're putting a little too much emphasis on too many words. Listen. These sounds are pronounced by bringing the two lips, there's a tonic, nearly together. These sounds, it's not these sounds, are pronounced by bringing the two, because we keep getting the signal that we're done, and then more comes, and you're getting excited, and we're running out of excitement energy. We can only use so much excitement energy. It has to be saved for the really important things. If we use it up right away as we go along, it's like having dessert for every course. We can't have dessert for every course. Sounds delicious now. We can't have dessert for every course of a meal, but we keep using it up. That means we don't have any way to surprise people when it really is needed. So don't go down. That's the key. These sounds are pronounced by bringing the two lips. That's why we have the continuation rise. That puts off our excitement. 就延后，把我们的那个兴奋的地方延后一下，say 等一下会有，等一下会有。So these sounds are pronounced by bringing the two lips, continuation rise, nearly together. That's a bigger tonic, so that there is only a slit between them. There's our excitement. That's the big tonic of the sentence. Go.
These sounds are pronounced by bringing the two lips the two lips nearly together.
Nearly, don't go nearly. It's nearly.
Nearly together.
There we go.
So that there is only.
Slow down.
So that
there is only.
So that there is only a slit between them.
Between them.
Between them.
Yeah. Great.
In every, the name of the language itself.
Okay, you went too far down on language. So the name of the language. I think that's a tone you can practice. The language itself.
In every, the name of the. In every.
Right.
The name of the language itself is.
Eve.
Is
or
eve.
Eve. I forget which tone it is. Yeah.
Eve. Whereas the word for two.
Where's the word for?
Whereas the word for two.
Right.
Is eve.
Right. Eve. Or Eve, whichever it is. Yeah.
Try to pronounce these.
You went down again.
Try to pronounce.
Listen.
Pronounce.
Listen. Try to pronounce these contrasting words yourself. Everyone listen and try to analyze each intonation that I use here. Try to pronounce, little tonic, these contrasting words, bigger tonic, and the biggest one is on yourself. Yourself. Try to pronounce these contrasting words yourself. Okay?
Try to pronounce these contrasting words yourself.
That's good.
Eve also contrast voiceless by labial.
Bilabial. Don't go down. You're going down to your low range, and it sounds like you're finished. So, voiceless, bilabial, and.
Voiceless bilabial and labial-dental fricatives.
Good. Yeah.
The contrast involving all these sounds are shown in Table 7.1.
All right. And if this is open and ready, maybe we can hear the samples.
Eve.
Eve. All right. And this is with the labiodental.
Eve.
Okay, that's with the V sound.
Eve.
It's a little hard to hear, but that is the labiodental fricative. No, so it's the bilabial, sorry. Bilabial fricative, voiced bilabial fricative. And we have a couple other words. I'll look at table 7.1. We'll just go through those. Some of them are voiceless. Okay, everybody, upper left-hand corner. This one means he polished. Ifa. Ifa. It's not really tight. It's not ifa. It's ifa. Ifa. 还蛮松的感觉. And then this one has an F, labiodental.
Effa. Effa. Effa.
Okay, and then we just listen to the other two. Let's listen to the right-hand column.
Apple.
All right, so now we know the tone marks. If it ends high, then it's a high tone, and if it ends low, it's a low tone.
Apple. Apple. Apple.
Now with the labiodental,
Apple.
two high tones.
Apple.
And then here's the voiced.
Apple. Apple. Apple.
Evlo. And then labiodental.
Apple. Apple.
It's not strongly voiced. It's not that strongly voiced. All right, that's a good place to stop because we've got a new topic after Jerome is Annie, right? Okay, so we'll do that second hour after the test. We now have all the tests, right? We're going to continue. I just noticed something in the notes of one of you, and that is a pronunciation of figure. It is not figure. It's not you. It's a schwa. Everyone, figure. Figure. We have this slang expression, go figure. Go figure, that means 讲一大堆好像很不合理的一件事情，讲完了，他奇怪还是那样做。Go figure， 你自己去想，怎么会这个样子 ？Go figure, go figure. That's a phrase you can practice it in. All right, we got through bilabial fricatives. And our main language where we get examples from was what? Eve, yeah. Good. We're going to continue now with lingual labials. These are very rare, and they were actually only recently recorded, and they only recently invented a symbol for the IPA. It's in the past 10 years. Peter Ladefoged was involved in that. It's something new. It doesn't often happen that we get a new symbol in the IPA. So at the time, it was all over the media, at least the media that I watch. They made a big deal of it, a new symbol in the IPA. Okay, next reader, please.
We should also note here some other labial sounds not shown in figure 7.1. A few Austronesian languages spoken in
Vanuatu. That's how I say it anyway.
Have lingual labials.
All right, before you go on, lingual labials, what are those going to be? Linguo is tongue. Linguo is tongue. Because lengua in Spanish goes back to Latin, means both tongue and language. And in Georgian, it's ena. Ena is the word both for tongue and language. And a friend of mine posted on my Facebook, it was, okay, ena is tongue and language, right? The genitive is is, enis, enis. That's the genitive in Georgian. So they had a sign that said, enis salata. Enis salata. Salata, you can tell it's a walayu. It's a salad, that's right. So enis salata, how do you think they translated it into English? Go ahead. Tongue salad. Tongue is 大概是牛舌. But they didn't translate it into tongue salad. They made a mistake and wrote language salad. It's on my Facebook if you want to see it. Language salad in Georgian, yeah. So they have very, very funny English in Georgia, like anywhere else, when people translate menus without asking a native speaker. It happens all over in Taiwan. There's some really crazy translations. But not just Taiwan. It's a worldwide phenomenon. If you want to read a whole bunch of funny examples, I posted before, go to English.com. English.com. You'll see a lot of very funny signs in English. I think it started out in Japan. That's where they got the name. But it's everywhere. Right? So lingual means tongue, and labial means? So very good. Now, how are you going to produce a lingual labial without reading on? Right. Is it probably going to be the upper or lower lip? Just because it's convenient and natural. Very good. It's kind of weird. I suppose it's possible, but it's just like a lot of sounds that we don't produce. Like what? Yeah, that's right. Exactly. We don't have any language that does it, even though we can do it. It's pretty awkward. And we also don't have ingressive clicks. I'm sorry, we don't have egressive clicks. They're all ingressive. My fault. Right. That's just the way it is. So lingual labials. Go ahead.
In which the tongue touches.
In which, not which. In which.
In which the tongue.
Which.
Which the tongue touches the upper lip.
All right. Before we go on, Austronesian in Chinese is called 南岛语系. 南岛语系, Austronesian. You need to know that because you're Taiwanese. And all of the native languages of Taiwan, all of the Aboriginal languages of Taiwan are Austronesian. All of them are Austronesian. They go back thousands of years, a long time. As for the early history, there's still some 争议. Not everybody agrees, so I won't go into that. And also, Taiwan is known as the homeland of Austronesian. And we've mentioned that in class before. 应该是那个南岛语系的那个起源发源地，它的发源地. So languages spread out from Taiwan to the rest of the world, and they spread out really broadly. Austronesian, before colonization, not counting colonization, is probably the most widely distributed language family of the world. 它分布非常的广. So from Taiwan to Hawaii, and with stops in New Zealand and Africa. In which country? Madagascar, Madagascar. And I've just talked about this recently to my African friend because we were talking about a special kind of music, a kind of zither that they have in Madagascar. So Malagasy is the name of the language, and it is an Austronesian language. Of course, it's been influenced by African, that's to be expected. But in any case, we're now talking about Austronesian languages in Vanuatu. It's an island, and the tongue touches the upper lip. And I don't know the proper pronunciation, so we'll just say Venentaut. Go ahead.
Venentaut has nasals, stops, and fricatives made in this way.
Made in this way. Made in this way. Made in this way. Everyone? Made in this way. All right, so nasals. Let's try a lingual labial nasal with ah. Ma, ma, ma. Let's try a stop. First, a voiceless stop. Ba, ba. And then voiced. Ba, ba. And a fricative. Va, va. 蛮有特色啊, right? Go ahead.
The diacritic for indicating a lingual labial articulation is.
Just jump over those. When you see a symbol, they describe it right after usually, so just jump over it.
Is a shape like a seagull.
All right, 海鸥符号. That's kind of fun.
Placed under the coronal symbol.
So that means that we'll write it with something like T or N, but we're going to put this symbol under it. Or it could be a D if it were voiced. But we're going to put this little seagull under it to show that it's lingual labial. Go ahead.
The Venentaut for breadfruit is pate.
Pate.
Tate.
Mm-hmm.
And first.
Go ahead. Bate.
Tate.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
And for stone is nada. These,
Nada.
nada. These and other
Nada.
Venentaut sounds are on the CD.
Let's go listen to them. they don't give you a table, so I'll just play them. This is a plain bilabial, bilabial. Butuk. Plain bilabial and a plain plain alveolar here, butuk. And then here we're going to have a plain nasal. Numuk. Okay. It doesn't look like the transcription to me, but that's what we've got. And then here is a voiced bilabial. So get ready for this. This is a beta. Now, if you hadn't learned voiced bilabials, and even having learned them, it sounds like a V, doesn't it? But it's a V. Naval. And we've got at the end, naval, right here. They didn't mark that final. All right, now here are the lingual labials. This is the one in the book. Now, it sounds like date to me. It sounds like date, but it's date. I can't tell from the recording. The second one has a lingual labial nasal in the middle. It's in the middle of the word. Nunmuk. The first one's a regular alveolar nasal. Nunmuk. I think it sounds like an M in the recording. Nummuk, but it's nunmuk. All right, and here's the next one, the fricative. And that just sounds like a V to me. Navet, but it's navet. Navet. Listen. Navet. Okay. And then we have, it gives alveolar, but it's marked as a lingual labial. So let's listen and see what it is. That sounded like something it sounded like Cindy. It sounded like Cindy. I don't know about that one. But it says Vanu, according to what they wrote here. I'm not so sure about it. It says alveolar. But it looks like they marked it with a lingual labial. So I'm not so sure about that date. I think there's a mistake there. But anyway, that's lingual labial, something new in the IPA. Let's go on.
2. Many languages are like English and having the labial dental fricatives. Fricatives.
Yeah, you go a little fast and it sounds a little too voiced or something. Fricatives.
Fricatives.
That's good.
But probably no language has labial dental stops or nasals, except as allophones of the corresponding bilabial sounds.
Okay, you read beautifully, but it's really fast. Just slow down. Labiodental stops or nasals. Labiodental, we have fricatives, right? F, v. But probably no language has labiodental stops or nasals. First, let's talk about stops. Why would no language have labiodental stops? Labiodental now, not lingual labial. Labiodental.
Because the teeth cannot be fully closed sealed with the lip.
That's right. And a lot of people don't have teeth. A lot of people don't have teeth. Or a lot of people have very bad teeth or missing teeth. 一定会落亏. So, but we can't. Just like Jerome said, we can't make a really complete seal. We can't do it. So apparently no language tries. They just give up. Very often, I thought of that because very often his informants were older people. A lot of the languages that Peter Ladefoged surveyed were endangered. And when a language is endangered, who still speaks it usually? Very old people. And what happens with old people in a developing country? Either they have no teeth or they have many health problems. And the tooth problem really influences your data collection. So for some of his data, he had to mention this person doesn't have teeth. So, 听起来有点怪怪. All right, so that stops because it's going to leak. We can't produce a complete seal. How about for nasals? Why do we not usually have nasals as a phoneme, labiodental nasals as a phoneme? Let's try to make them. Now, don't look at me. Can you tell that it's labiodental? What does it sound like? It sounds like M. It sounds like a bilabial. Because it is not perceptually salient enough. Salient means 突出. It's not distinctive enough. It's not distinctive enough. Let's do it again. It's not distinctive enough from other sounds, in this case, the bilabial. Distinctive. Perceptually salient. 在感知上面 perceptually salient. To sally means to 冲出来, and salient means to stick out. So, that sounds like a possible test question. Watch out for that one. Let's go on.
In English, a labiodental nasal may occur when occurs before f as an emphasis or symphony.
All right, everybody try that. Emphasis. Watch me when I'm doing it, and then you try it. Emphasis. Because of anticipatory assimilation or co-articulation. Emphasis. It will probably usually be a labiodental nasal. Emphasis. How about 交响乐? Symphony, watch. Symphony. Symphony. Okay, try those two. I don't say emphasis. Emphasis.
Say these words in a normal conversational style, and see
In a normal conversational style.
And see if your lower lip ever contacts your upper lip during the nasal.
All right, contacts doesn't always take with. To contact with somebody, we don't usually say that, to contact somebody. And note that the stress stays on the first syllable, contact, to contact somebody, even though it's a verb. So, you just tried that. Did you find you were making labiodental nasal? Yeah? Symphony, emphasis. Do you want to take the next paragraph? That was kind of short, Amy.
Some languages have affricates in which the bilabial stop is released into a labiodental fricative. Practice these sounds by learning to say the German words.
Who said German? Go ahead. Pfanne. Pfanne. Kind of explodes. Pfanne. And it means pan. I don't know why they say bowl. 平底锅. Pfanne. And? Flug. Flug. And then the final stops that are written as final voiceless stops are actually, final voice stops in German are actually voiceless. They'll write BDG, but actually they pronounce PDK. Yeah, so the final stops that are written as final voice stops are actually voiceless. And Flug is a plow. Li tian的那个li. Everybody, Flug. Flug. And the word Flug is a flight. 航空班机 is Flug. Like English flight. They're related. And this one is Flug. So, Flug and Flug. Flug, F, and then PF. So, Flug and Flug. Okay. So that's also one for the test, so please remember that. It's a bilabial stop released into a labiodental fricative. For affricates, the two sounds, the stop and the fricative, should be at the same place of articulation, or do they have to be exactly the same place of articulation? No, they have to be close. They can be either the same place of articulation or very close. And in this case, P is bilabial and F is labiodental, but they're very close. So, Flug. The first sound is bilabial, 并不是两个被 assimilate 成 labiodental. So, Flug. Bilabial plus labiodental 还是算 affricate. 那个发音的位置很接近. So we're clear on that? Okay, so we have a labiodental fricative coming out. Labiodental. Yeah, after a bilabial stop in German and in affricate. Let's go on.
Bella. Most speakers of both British and American English have dental fricative th, but no dental stops, nasals, but no dental stops, nasals, or laterals,
Or laterals.
except allophonically before th, as in
Eighth.
eighth.
I don't say it that way, but I'm doing it for the sake of the book. Eighth. I just say eighth. But he's assuming we say eighth. And 10th.
Wealth.
All right, let's practice these again. We've had them many times before, but let's go over them again. So it says that we have dental, stops, nasals, and laterals. Eighth. The T is going to be dental because it's influenced by the th. Everybody, eighth. Eighth. T, first t, then th. I don't say it that way, but I am now. Eighth. My normal way, eighth. That doesn't work here. It doesn't make a good example. 10th. And wealth. So the L also becomes interdental. And remember, we're using interdental because we need dental for other things. Go ahead.
Many speakers of French, Italian, and other languages
And other languages.
and other languages and other languages typically have dental stops, nasals, and laterals.
That's something to remember. In the Romance languages, what we call alveolar sounds are typically dental, just like Mandarin. We may call them alveolar as well for Mandarin, but mostly they're dental. The t, n, l in Mandarin are generally dental. And that's true of the Romance languages in general. French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, etc. 都是这样子. Go ahead.
In these languages,
The, n.
are not just corticulated allophones that occur only before th, as in English.
As in English.
As in English.
Can you link?
As in English.
As in English.
As in English.
There we go. That sounded really natural. That's good. So if we just have the word de in French, it's de. It's rounded first of all. And second, okay, so de, and your tongue is going to touch your teeth. So, and ne, and le, they are all dental in French. Okay?
However, there is a great deal of individual variation in the pronunciation of these consonants in all these languages.
Okay, so keep that in mind. This is the theory. They're dental, but there will be different degrees of dentalness.
According to a careful palatographic study, around 1/3 of Californian English speakers
Californian English.
English speakers have dental stops, and many French speakers have alveolar rather than dental consonants.
Okay, so that's just the opposite of what we'd expect. In California, do we normally have dental stops in English? Do we have dental stops in English? We have dental fricatives, interdental fricatives, but do we normally have dental stops in English? No. But according to their data, and he said it was a careful palatographic, that means that, we'll learn about it later in the chapter, they put charcoal in your mouth, either on your tongue or on your palate, and then you make the sound, and then they take a photograph of it. They stick a camera in your mouth, and they use a mirror, and then they take a photograph of which parts have been removed through contact. 因为只要是有接触到那个口水，会让那个碳粉有一片不见了. That tells us where you have touched. So they did very careful studies. And he writes that because a lot of people say, nah, I don't believe that. That's why he said, 非常的仔细，很用心. It shows that about 1/3 of Californian English speakers, and that's where Professor Ladefoged used to teach, have dental stops. So they don't actually have alveolar stops, they actually touch the teeth in English. That's something we don't really expect. And something else we don't expect is French speakers have alveolar rather than dental because all the books tell us they have dental stops. But in fact, a lot of French people make alveolar stops. So there is a lot of variation. Go ahead.
Well over half of them in the case of the lateral.
Ooh, okay, so good. Well over half of them. That half should be really high and emphasized. 超过一半，那就数目相当多哦。Well over half of them in the case of the lateral. Le, so I just said they probably say le, dental, but often people, more than half, will say le, as an alveolar, okay?
Say words such as tip, tip, nip, lip, and try to feel where your tongue touches the roof of your mouth.
Of your
mouth.
Very good, I'm being picky. All right, say those slowly, one at a time. Don't try to do them all at once in English. And see if you are using dental stops and nasals in English, which is very likely since you might be influenced by Mandarin, or if they are alveolar in your English. Try them. Tip, dip, nip, lip. Are they alveolar or dental for you? Alveolar? You're not touching your teeth? You are. Okay, everybody just tell me if your stops and nasal and lateral are alveolar or dental. Dental?
I think it's dental.
Okay.
For T and N, I use alveolar, but for D and L, I use dental.
Okay, good. Mimi? More alveolar, okay? Okay. Dental, all of them dental? L and N are alveolar. Okay, so that's to be expected, and it's no problem because we don't really mind at all in English. 1/3 of Californians apparently use dental articulations. 听起来差别真的不大. It does not bother us at all. So either one is fine. Let's go on.
Some languages, such as Malayalam,
Very good.
a Dravidian language spoken in southern India,
Language, pause.
Language spoken in southern India,
What are we omitting here?
which is contrast dental and alveolar consonants. Examples of contrasting Malayalam nasals are shown in Table 7.2. The table also includes other consonantal gestures that are used in Malayalam but not in most forms of English. We will discuss these in subsequent paragraphs.
Good. And let's listen to Malayalam. And in other years, students told me some of them, they can't distinguish them at all, but honestly, a lot of nasals are very difficult to hear clearly and correctly with audio recordings. In person, if you're looking at them, it might be easier, but they're pretty hard to hear, except for like bilabials are pretty clear. The more familiar ones are clear. So this is, they again don't have the table in the book. Oh, they do, sorry. Page 166, so I'll just play the sounds, the items in this table.
Gummy.
Try it. Gummy. I don't hear much aspiration.
Gummy.
That sounds like a pretty clear zero onset, zero VOT. Let's go to dental.
Bunny.
But make it really dental. Put your tongue against the back of your upper row of teeth.
Bunny.
Here's alveolar. That should sound really ordinary to us.
Gunny.
Compare that to the dental. Can you hear a clear difference?
Bunny.
If you listen carefully, maybe you can, but these are distinctive. These are different phonemes in Malayalam. So their ears must be sharply attuned to dental versus alveolar. I don't think that's that common in languages, that they contrast them as different phonemes. But we have it in Malayalam. Let's just finish the table here. This is retroflex now. Curl up your tongue.
Gunny.
Garni. Garni. All right, and then we've got palatal, which is pretty easy. This is a ny sound. That should be pretty clear.
Kanni. Kanni.
Garni. Ni.
Kanni.
It's not that obvious. And then velar should be easy.
Kungi. Kungi.
These are all distinctive, different phonemes. That's kind of amazing. Did we finish that paragraph? Not quite, right? Finish? We will discuss, that's right. So that's where we stop. And then next reader will be Vivian, right? So start with alveolar stops on page 165. And remember vowels and consonants. And have your questions ready right at the beginning of class. And we'll try to get through that quickly. I also plan to give you a dictation again on Wednesday. And we may already have bilabials. I haven't written it yet, so I'm not sure. What else do we need to know? We're going to mainly concentrate on getting through chapter 7 quickly. It's not that difficult. There'll be some new sounds, but I don't think you'll have much trouble with them. So we will see you on Wednesday.